A long while back, I took a look and went over a ton of in-universe foods in the Five Nights at Freddy's series. But since then, not only has a new game come out, but also I missed a couple of foods that should have been on the list. So, today we'll be diving into more delicious and disgusting food from Freddy's. Put a little asterisk beside the Freddy's. We'll start by briefly revisiting a topic from the first video for what is more so an interesting but largely non-important detail, and that is the pizza. Now, last time I talked a lot about Freddy's Pizza, how it originally started out homemade and probably flavorful, then lazier practices kicked in and they started to cut corners, until it got to the point where they were basically just flash microwaving pizzas at the Pizzaplex. We went through the whole rigmarole and there isn't much to add, except one very small thing. In Help Wanted's Pizza Party, you can choose to get a pepperoni or cheese pizza. I recently unlocked Pizza Party after losing all of my progress changing computers and pretty much never trying again until I needed the footage. And when I went through it, I chose cheese pizza because it was different. So, lo and behold, imagine my shock when my pizza has rounds on it. Ta-da! Okay, so likely this is just a texturing bug. That's the cheese texture over a pepperoni base, or I'm guessing that's it. But you know, we've used glitches and bugs as evidence before, so if we take this into account, maybe this is telling us that Freddy's just makes all pepperoni pizzas and whenever someone dares to order without, they just peel them off and give as is. It's absolutely in Freddy's wheelhouse. They do dumb stuff all the time, both cheap and money-wasting, and if you told me Freddy's did this, I'd believe it. Or at the very least, allow me to bless you with the mental image of Glitch Trap rushing to peel pepperonis off a pizza after Vanessa chose the cheese option. The VR game really was a good example of the Freddy's experience. But a good chunk of this video is not going to be covering Freddy's. I know, surprising despite the title, but at the very least, most of the stuff did become Freddy's property after the events of Secret of the Mimic. Because I'm talking about the foods surrounding and created at Murray's Costume Manor or shown in Secret of the Mimic next, and that'll be a good chunk of them. I think we'll start with what I would consider to be the most important food items in the game, the cakes baked by Fiona and the Mimic believing it's Fiona. Now you may not realize this, but these cakes are a pretty big example of some of the main themes surrounding Secret of the Mimic, such as, but not limited to, trying to replicate the human touch with technology and failing. But to what extent? Well, let's look at the cakes. Fiona's cake has been featured a couple of times in Fnaf, such as in Monty Golf, the A-Arcade, as a cameo, though it had eyes back then. But this is the first time it hasn't been a prop. Also, I think it was a little more pink in that one. It's a 2-layer cake with some tall layers. Looks to be vanilla frosted with a chocolate glaze drenched over it, and then topped with a ton of fresh fruits, such as strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, and what looks to be pears, probably peaches. I thought I saw kiwis before, but looking at them now, I can't see them. And it's a little hard to tell as I wasn't able to find a ripped model, so basically we have to go off of Monty's minigame and this grainy film reel. So let's just add unidentified fruit to the mix. Okay, stop the presses. I found the render. In my files. Apparently I had it for some reason, probably because of the last fast food video. This looks to be the same cake, and yup, those are apparently kiwis. But they don't really look like kiwis in the film reel, so I'm not sure. I'm not even sure where I ended up finding this render, so take it with a grain of salt. The taste is likely delicious. We don't know what flavor the cake itself is, but the fresh fruit and chocolate glaze no doubt give it a nice, moist consistency. Homemade, definitely, with a tall slice in every cut. Imagine a bite of sweet vanilla, rich chocolate sauce, and tart berries. Perfect. It's clear that Fiona went all out with this cake. It's possible most of these fruits were canned, but if they weren't, this was the 1970s when fruit was more seasonably challenged. But Fiona still went out of her way to get piles of berries. She managed to ice it and then still drenched it in chocolate. This was above and beyond. For like a 1-year-old. It was absolutely a labor of love, and goes to show that she wasn't just a good baker, but that she enjoyed baking. Now, the Mimic's cake is a far cry from this. Don't get me wrong, it's well made, especially by robot standards, but the difference is night and day. The Mimic's cake is a basic sheet cake with white icing, blue icing ringed around the corners, and with big icing balloons. Happy Birthday David is spelled out on it. The taste probably matches the design. Sweet, vanilla-y, a good cake but not a great cake. A basic cake. A standard cake that anyone could buy. Lacking the creativity and care of what Fiona made. Not stylized towards David at all, fitting more with a random cake served to an employee at an office. And that could be by design. The cake was served at the office, not in their home, so it could have taken inspiration or direction from the cakes that would have been served in that office, the basic sheet cake. Both cakes were baked for David's birthday, as I said, but the reason behind them is entirely different. Fiona's cake is a labor of love for her son, and while the Mimic is technically the same, it is out of a replication of Fiona's. The Mimic makes the cake because it believes it is Fiona, and Fiona would have made David a cake. Edwin seems a little surprised that she made the cake. Maybe because it looks so close to a bakery cake, but he apparently requested her to get a cake somehow. It's kind of hard to read into his direct wording. He seems impressed either way, but this is Edwin, who believed puppet shows that had generated stories worked as well as those written by people. And that's kind of the tragedy of Secret of the Mimic. The Mimic never had a chance once it was made to replicate a human being who it had never even met. It could only pretend that it was her and do its best, and its best was sterile in comparison. Also, considering that the cake reappeared in Monty Golf A Arcade, we have to ask ourselves if it was due to Glitchtrap's influence or if even her cake was ripped off by Freddy's. Note, I know it's more so asset reusal and repurpose, but it's funnier to think that William even ripped off a cake Fiona made years before she died. Oh, and I nearly forgot one more cake. Edwin's cake. Yes, Edwin has a cake. In the film reel taking place during the birthday after Fiona died, Edwin lavishes David with gifts and even a yellow cake, but then rushes off back to work, despite David being left alone on his birthday, the first birthday he'll be facing alone without his mother. At first, Edwin's cake looks perfectly pleasant. It's a single-layer circular cake with yellow and white icing dotted with sprinkles and topped with 3 candles. But then you look closer and you notice it's fake. Now, it could be that this is just a reused asset and it's not supposed to be fake, because we do see this exact model in the game. But if it was on purpose, it too holds an uncomfortable and unfortunate implication. Edwin was willing to throw gifts at David, but not making him the effort in baking him a proper cake. Even if it would have been basic, maybe even bad, there would have been an effort and an amount of love from that effort. He's not willing to invest even that amount of time to do this, even if it was as simple as buying a boxed cake mix and throwing it together. Even if it was as simple as going and buying a cake. He just replaces it with a toy, with something David can't even eat. It looks good, but it has no merit for its intended use. It's a prop. It's not edible. It's not useful. Edwin knows how to give gifts, toys, trinkets, and he knows how to make these things. He might have actually, literally, made this cake. But once it steps out of his comfort zone, he automatically shuts down. He's unwilling. Edwin is able to build the most incredible things. He is absolutely capable of baking a cake on his own. And it's not just because he thinks, oh, I'm too good to bake a cake. If he thought that way, he wouldn't be making children's toys. He wouldn't be making food stuff. He's just not willing to step out of his own designated zone long enough to do something for someone else. And that's why he's not willing to sacrifice even the smallest amount of time from his work to spend David's birthday with him, even though he's going to elsewise be all alone, save perhaps a babysitter, because the Mimic wasn't involved yet. That's pretty tragic. And, you know, if you think about it, it actually kind of reframes the whole Mimic situation in another way as well. Whereas the Mimic was replicating Fiona's love and couldn't do it correctly and still was inhuman, even it was willing to make an effort and create something. It knew it's what it was supposed to be doing, something that Edwin should have known, but seemingly didn't. Something that seems downright obvious considering the circumstances. But there's not much else to say. The cake is, it's not edible. But with that out of the way, we have a lot of food to cover with Secret of the Mimic going forward. The cake is just the tip of the iceberg. Murray's Costume Manor didn't just make costumes, they also made food. And not just for their own brands, but brands that had been licensed with them. And we will be going through all of them that I know of. Starting with the one we know the most about, Jest cereal. A cereal brand made and owned by MCM, as we know by both the MCM label and the mascot slip saying that the Jest mascot was ordered internally. The cereal is a basic berry-tasting corn and oat cereal, probably tasting like Trix, if I would guess, though more berry-flavored. The cereal pieces are little diamonds in purple, green, and yellow, matching the diamonds on the suit of Jest, the mascot character. This hideous, nondescript animal with a rat nose, no tail, and some gnarly teeth, and the laugh, ooh.
What that person on your tape has is a medical disorder.
Yeah, you could tell this was something that only Edwin Murray could have cooked up. Though, interesting that, as far as I'm aware, none of the Jest mascot variations match the same coloring as the cereal. Odd. It's more Mardi Gras colors. The main draw of the Jest cereal was the pranks that were hidden in the box. The only one that we know about is a hand buzzer that was strong enough to paralyze a dog. So I'm going to take a guess and say that unless most of the other gags were cheap plastic, MCM was probably losing money on this deal. At least there was a Jest mask you could cut out of the back of the box. Something normal attached. The gags were the gimmick. That didn't mean that the cereal didn't taste fine. It's sort of hard to mess up basic cereal, but the cereal itself was not the main focus. At the very least, it looks very colorful, and it's dirt cheap. Inflation. Next up, Swing Bee Honey. Fun guaranteed. Swing like a bee. US grade C+. Okay, so I had to look this up, but apparently the grading system with honey involves the strain style. Grade C would be fairly free of defects, not affecting appearance or edibility, and the flavor would be fairly good, reasonably free of smoke, fermentation, and chemicals. Most importantly, though, Grade C is technically the lowest quality of honey you can have before it becomes substandard. Swing Bee honey is likely not bad or terrible honey, but it is unapologetically mediocre compared to the competitors. And no, the plus doesn't mean anything. Also, notice how small it is, too. The only thing going for it is Swing Bee themselves, a bee mascot seen throughout Murray's, including in the Welcome Show. And yet, Murray's doesn't own Swing Bee. Happy Bee Inc. does, though the Swing Bee snack has the MCM logo on it. So, does MCM own Happy Bee Inc.? Or are they just close enough in cahoots to share the character? Guess we'll never know. At the very least, the honey itself doesn't seem to be made at MCM, unless there's a bunch of beehives hidden on the other side of the building. At the very least, the honey comes in a very cute bee-shaped bottle. Moving forward, coffee. Edwin Murray was big into coffee. After all, he made the Stay Up Latte machine, a friendly-faced automated coffee machine that was said to tailor-make cups of coffee based off the cups you've already made before. Basically remembering past orders and replicating them. In the ad for the machine, the cartoon Edwin mentions the cup as being rich, creamy, and sweet, though this is likely not the standard cup, but his preferred cup of coffee. TLDR, Edwin prefers his coffee with extra cream and sugar. Probably. Now, there is a complaint from a customer saying that a steel worker drinking the Stay Up Latte was put in the hospital because of the drink. But it doesn't say how. It took 2 weeks, so either the drink machine malfunctioned and spiked his cup with too much caffeine, something went sour inside, or he ended up falling asleep on the job and was sent to the hospital. Probably that one. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that unlike some of the complaints levied against MCM, as disastrous as this is, I don't think they'd be liable for it. Not unless you could really prove that there was no caffeine in that coffee. And even then, him falling asleep on the job, I don't know. I think it would depend because the commercial implies that Edwin was drinking more than one Stay Up Latte, so... But really, mincing words, it doesn't matter. The coffee probably tastes fine, might pair well with Murray's Mints, but as we'll get into, mixing them might not be a good idea. Now to move on to the smaller, less intricate stuff. There are a slew of snacks and candy found throughout Murray's Costume Manor, and thankfully someone uploaded clean pictures of them to the wiki so we can get a good look at them. In some cases, even being able to see the back and the contents, as well as seeing the label deeming them an MCM branded product or not. Let's go through them now, starting with Chica's Cheesy Chips. Cheesy, crunchy, delicious. Take Chica's favorite snack with you on the go. Obviously Chica branded. As we learn in Secret of the Mimic, Chica had her own restaurant, Chica's Party World, and had just become a Freddy's adjacent character as she was planned to have an animatronic in the upcoming business that MCM was drafting down in the R&D department. Now, the reason that it's important to bring up Chica's Party World is because of the messaging on the bag. Take Chica's favorite snack with you on the go. Now that could just be branding lingo, but it could also imply that these chips were sold at Chica's or were based off of nachos sold at Chica's. It's a possibility. They also seem to be pretty similar to El Chip's chips, but unlike the Meat Bites and Sizzlers comparison that we'll get to shortly, I think it's too much of a jump to say these Chica chips became El Chip chips since it's such a basic chip concept. They're basically Doritos. Crunchy, cheesy, a little hard, nightmarish if you had any dental work recently, but so good. Well, good enough. Cornles. Corn syrup flavored nuggets. What? Okay, first thing that comes to mind are like corn-shaped chewy bites that are likely very sweet and taste indistinctive. Gonna say maybe like candy corn. They are not branded by MCM and probably taste like sugar. Nondescript, cheap Halloween candy sugar. We have the fruit bar next, the most confusing candy item in existence. It is a 100% artificial fruit bar that is non-fruity and has a fruit-free fruit flavor. So it has no fruit, it doesn't have a fruity taste, but it has a fruit flavor. So it just tastes like sugar, right? Like, that's the only thing I can assume is that it tastes like sweet nothing, just trying to trick people into believing that it has some sort of vitamin content or value because fruit is on the label, even if it's non-fruit. Unless the non-fruity tag is saying, again, no fruit instead of saying non-fruit flavor. But it also says that on the bottom, so yeah, no, I'm gonna just assume that it's this candy bar that tastes probably exactly like the corn syrup bites, but doesn't have any fruit in it, but plenty on the label. Hudgies, and that's it. Though two things are of note. First, the Hudgies bar seems to be based off of an equally nondescript Fazbear, and secondly, it seems to be based off of Hudgie the Hedgehog, a character seen frequently around MCM. But it doesn't have an MCM logo on it. Does that mean that Hudgie isn't owned by MCM despite being frequently used? Okay, I just double checked and I actually was able to find the order form for Hudgie, or the Hudgie mascot. And interestingly enough, it says the purchaser's name is Hudgies, so there is a company or brand known as Hudgies that owns him, not MCM. But as for the bar itself, it's extremely nondescript, lacking any tagline or ingredients like some of the others have, so let's assume it just tastes like cheap chocolate. Murray's Mints, as expected, they have the MCM branding on them. They look like Tic Tacs and probably have the same minty taste, though notice the helps you focus tagline. We know Edwin was big into making products to keep people alert and awake, like coffee, so it would make sense if the mints had some sort of, like, caffeine in them. Though I would expect that would add a noticeable bitter taste to them. But if you popped one of these trying to get rid of the smell of coffee on your breath, you are in trouble. At best, you're getting a little jittery, and at worst, you're overdosing on caffeine. Though that would really take a lot of caffeine to do so. So I'd say more so jittery, fast heart rate, relatively uncomfortable. I think the fact that the mints have something in them to pep you up already kind of seems like overkill when it is probably more so an after-dinner, after-meal mint. Maybe it's specifically to stop the post-lunch crashing. The Mycellium Mush Bar, also an MCM product, and this one has more going for it on the back. Based off the Mycelium Men characters, who are mushrooms, the chocolate bar holds the theming by having a naturally artificial mushroom taste, covered in chocolate-flavored coating. Now, the chocolate-flavored coating, not a big deal. You'll see that term used in chocolate, specifically cheaper chocolate, but the taste of mushrooms are so varied. Fresh mushrooms have a fainter taste unless you get like specific mushrooms, let's say truffles, and unless you cook and season them. This implies that the chocolate bar tastes like an average baseline raw mushroom taste, which I don't think you'd ever taste over the chocolate. It likely just tastes like chocolate with some Rice Krispie texturing, as per the ingredients, there's some Rice Krispies in there. Notably in the ingredients, you can see that cocoa butter is in there, and as advertised, no actual mushrooms. So at least the advertising was direct and accurate this time. Honestly, cheap chocolate bar that touts a mushroom taste only in advertising purposes, but in practice tastes like off chocolate. Plano-os, unflavored oat rounds. So bagged Cheerios. Odd choice, but okay. Sizzles, ready-to-eat preserved meat bites. These seem to be the predecessor to the meat bites that later became a staple of Freddy's establishments, such as the Pizzaplex. Why the name changed is unclear, but it could be that meat bites were a knockoff of these or a rebranding of these, since they don't seem to be owned by MCM. They probably taste like little jerky bites. Meaty, tough, basic, hard to mess up. Next is Swing Bee Bobbles. The bobbles are shaped like Swing Bee's bobbles, but have no description. Here's assuming they taste like honey. Tiger Truffle is very interesting because it's a product made from a character who, by all accounts, doesn't exist. So the white tiger was a plush toy that Fiona made for David, which he became very attached to. There was later a white tiger mascot suit made, only one that we know of. But we see no other toys, mentions, or advertisement involving this tiger. It seems deliberate, like this character wasn't really one Edwin marketed, but was strictly for David. Well, until the Tiger Truffle Bar. Maybe Edwin decided to capitalize and base some products off his son's favorite toy and this uncomfortable mascot suit. And the taste? No clue. But it's called a Tiger Truffle, so unless it too is made of mushrooms, it likely is just another variation of a chocolate bar. We're up to like, what, 4 now? Toodle-oos, curly, crunchy, and gone so fast they'll have you saying Toodle-oo. Nacho cheese flavored squiggles. Do not have the MCM branding. I'm guessing they taste like Cheetos and are probably a decent competitor to Chica's cheesy chips. Though their nondescript packaging and lack of a mascot suggests that they're not probably as successful. Wondercrisps, golden and crispy potato-flavored goodness in every slice. I don't like the potato-flavored comment, though the package does seem to say that there's potato starch in it. That's something. Though there's also wheat starch and cornstarch. Now, cornstarch is technically only edible in small amounts, so here's hoping that's not like a lot, or these might be the chips that give you diarrhea. That's a joke. This is cornstarch. You'll likely just have like severe bodily dysfunction, apparently. Then there's zippers. Nothing much to see here, folks. Probably more chocolate. Now on to the drinks, and while there's not too many, there's shockingly a bit to talk about here. Starting with Cola-Roni, which seems to be the predecessor to Soda-roni. Like with meat bites, the brand was probably renamed and started to be sold by Fazbear Entertainment. Or it's possible that they were the owners of the brand since the MCM logo isn't there. Either way, the similarities in name can't be a coincidence. Fiztime Pop Soda, which also comes in light, likely in either low sugar or no calories or no sugar and no calories variant. Now this is a name we haven't heard in a while. In case you don't remember, Fiztime Pop Soda was one of the brands who would sponsor you in Pizzeria Simulator and would pay you to put up banners in your pizzeria and occasionally have their ads pop up on the office monitor. The tagline is, "Have a poppin' good time with Fiztime Pop," and the mascot is a soda cup with a bow tie, a character who, unless I'm wrong, hasn't appeared elsewhere. There's zero clue on what it tastes like, but I think we can at least say that the soda is successful, as this would mean that it was around from the 1970s all the way into whatever year's Pizzeria Simulator takes place. I tried to read the ingredients, but I couldn't make them out. And as these ripped models and textures are usually the clearest versions of them, I didn't try to find one in-game. Didn't think it would work, so probably just has like a basic cola flavor, and that's why it's lasted so long. In fact, it's possible, not said anywhere, but possible, that the drink cup in the original Fnaf 1 office is a Fiztime Pop Soda. There's nothing to indicate that, it would just be neat if it was. Also, the obvious just occurred to me. Fiztime Pop was likely bought out and replaced by Fizzy Faz. making it another casualty to Fazbear Entertainment's gluttonous absorption of other brands. And because of that, might not exist as of Pizzaplex times. The fizz similarities in the name seem a little skin deep until you see things like Soda-roni and Cola-Roni. It would make a lot of sense. Ice cold milk. Okay, so this milk is cursed as hell, because the only way I see something like this flying is if it's evaporated milk, which is shelf-stable milk, which means it can be unrefrigerated. And many of the crates of ice cold milk cans are. But the problem is that if you've drank evaporated milk, you know that while it's sweet, it's usually pretty thick and doesn't really get super cold because of that thick richness. It's not refreshing. It's like, when you drink evaporated milk, it doesn't taste bad, but you do distinctly get the feel that maybe I shouldn't be drinking this. At least in my experience. So maybe it's just straight up milk. Well, that's a problem too. I don't know if whole milk in aluminum cans will stay good if not refrigerated. I'm pretty sure, I actually looked this up, but I'm moderately sure that whole milk in aluminum cans will not stay good if not refrigerated. These things might curdle if left out to any extent, not to mention grow some funky stuff. And with absolutely zero ingredients on it, we have nothing to go on except that it is, in fact, milk. I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd drink milk from a vending machine. Heck, I once drank water out of a soda can from a vending machine and it tasted a little odd. Milk ain't coming out in any higher than a C+ grade. Plus, I don't know, it just seems weird to me. Though maybe Edwin's a big milk fan or something. It doesn't say that it's an MCM brand, but there's so much of this stuff around the building that I could believe that it is. Or that it's like some startup that Edwin decided to invest way too much money in. The last possibility is that this is one of those fruity, non-fruity, no-fruit bar situations, and that it's not real milk, in which case I can only assume that it's some sort of fake milk made specifically to be sold in aluminum cans, and that would be kind of rough. And to clarify, I know that milk is stored in big milk cans. I'm talking specifically about these soda cans being left out at room temperature. It maybe can work, but I don't see a scenario where it's pleasant. And finally, Roxy's Rootin' Tootin' Root Beer. And yes, that Roxy is a familiar face. Deadeye Roxy, the previous iteration of Roxanne Wolf. Now, it's unclear whether she or first mate Roxy came first. They do spell their names differently and seem to be distinct characters, but they did assumedly merge together and became what was eventually the beloved Roxanne Wolf. But that aside, the root beer itself looks like it tastes good. Either from the glass, assumedly glass bottles, or just, being root beer. Root beer is another thing that's just kind of hard to mess up. Though it is notable that apparently the root beer itself didn't survive as long as Roxy did, because by the time we get to the Pizzaplex, Roxy's soda flavors are Cola and grape. And maybe it could be that they kind of wanted to ditch the root beer flavor. Maybe root beer's not as popular as it used to be, so they decided to can it. Pun intended. But who knows? At the very least, Roxy made it. But with that, we're out of Murray's Costume Manor foods, or as far as I'm aware. I might be missing something, and surely there's a lot more food products sold at MCM that weren't featured in-game. But as established, they made some goods for other companies too. And one of those locations was Chica's Party World, a restaurant with Chica the Chicken as the main mascot pre-Freddy's. And would you know it, it had a lot of food. And would you know it, but we get to see some of this food from a commercial in-game. First off, we have a burger. 2 chicken patties smothered in what looks to be melted cheese in between 2 buns. Looks absolutely meaty. Weird that there's no other toppings, like even lettuce, but normally businesses will have a basic burger with few toppings, but usually that's not the headliner. Still looks good. Also, fun fact, I misheard and thought the ad said Chica's Creamy Burgers. I don't know what a creamy burger is, but if it's a patty glazed in gravy, I don't know, I might tear that up. Next, we have the crinkle cut potato fries. I'd wonder why they have to specify that they're made out of potato, but I guess it's either because they have like chicken fries or because of the whole non-fruit bar thing. They wanted to clarify that these are real potato. Not only that, they look topped with cheese. Tasty. Next, we see a little cupcake. Looks like a simple cupcake with pink icing, but looks more homemade instead of conveyor made, so likely fresh and tasty. Even if on the basic side, Though I can't tell if the eyes are candy or googly eyes. They might be a choking hazard. Then we have the chowder. Nay, the world-famous chowder. And apparently Chica's chowder did become pretty famous as it survived for decades, though not in its earliest state. This chowder is lumpy and creamy. It doesn't say what's in the chowder, but we can see potatoes. And since Mr. Chicken is advertised on the poster, maybe it contains chicken? For clarification, each poster has a little connecting character on it. The burger has Miss Burger, the cupcake has Mr. Cupcake, and the fries, with no character counterpart, just have Chica herself. I can't say for sure though, since it's hard to see if there's any chicken in the glazed up lumps. That being said, it's probably hearty and tasty regardless. Like I said though, the Chica chowder continued into the Freddy's business. More evidence of Fazbear Entertainment buying their rights. But notice that the quality going forward went straight into the dumpster, with useless attempts at gimmicks, such as them serving chowder in a giant cupcake, which would be disgusting, to them changing the hearty potato chowder to what's basically cheese soup with pepperonis floating in it in a bread bowl. And knowing Fazbear Entertainment's practices, it likely is just watered down cheese sauce instead of actual chowder. Probably came right out of the sauce dispenser. The designs became more eye-catching and glamorous, but it lost the heart, the taste, and any real meat to it. Sums up Fazant's business practices in general, I reckon. But moving on, and speaking of Chica's little buddies, because of Mr. Chicken and Miss Shake, we also know that the place sells traditional chicken buckets and milkshakes. And like I mentioned earlier with Chica's cheesy chips, they probably sell those here too, or nachos. So it seems like there's an ample variety at the business. If the pictures are to be believed, the food looks fresh and decadent. Simple but smothered in cheese, and packing big flavors. Clearly chicken themed too. Which makes this a first. We got a Freddy's business where I can say good things about the food without a noticeable but to add to the mix. Save the unfortunate, but sales went down, Freddy's acquired the rights, and the quality dipped sometimes afterwards. It happens. A lot in Fnaf, actually. Afton was a menace. And with that, it's time to segue out of Secret of the Mimic and back into the broader world of Freddy's. And since we're talking about gigantic mistakes that Fazbear Entertainment would no doubt make, let's discuss the Fazbear Funtime service, where Fazant would randomly send animatronics to your house for free to try and attack you, and the only animatronic they made that was edible. I mean, you could hork down buttons and bolts all day, but the only bunny you'll have any chance of eating without an impending surgery date would be Chocolate Bonnie. Chocolate Bonnie is a chocolate rabbit-themed Bonnie, and one of the most well-known and popular skins from Fnaf AR, appearing frequently in merch and occasionally in holiday artwork. And there's a reason for that. It's because he looks delicious. As named, Chocolate Bonnie's suit is made entirely out of a rich milk chocolate. He has a couple of bites taken out of him, including a big bite on his side that's caused his belly to crack, which sort of gives us a better idea of his texturing. He's got a firm chocolate shell. His buttons and nose are made of candy, seemingly, but his bow tie isn't because in his melted form we can see it melting, like it's a kind of dyed chocolate. Notably, his endo isn't made of chocolate or candy. It's made out of metal. So you wouldn't be able to eat Chocolate Bonnie in entirety, but I can confidently say that you could eat most of his suit. Or, well, in theory. Odds are you'd get one bite into Bonnie and then he'd take a bite out of your skull. Bonnie isn't known for his even temper when it comes to the hunt. But what would Chocolate Bonnie, taste like? Honestly, probably pretty good. Assuming Freddy's used at least decent quality chocolate to make him, he would just taste like a big chocolate bar. We can't tell if the candies are just candy balls or candy-covered chocolates as well, but they too probably taste good. Just don't eat him in his damaged state. He gets this weird dark smudging over him, and whether it's dirt, grime, or ash, you don't want any of it. Also, like I foreshadowed as well, there is a variation of Chocolate Bonnie called Melted Chocolate Bonnie, and it's more different than you'd expect. Because it looks a lot uglier, but it might taste a lot better. Melted Chocolate Bonnie is in a state of melting. His suit is starting to slouch and fall, giving him a smushed, even creepy face. More of his endo is exposed, and now he's dotted in a bunch of random little candies, which might have been inside of Chocolate Bonnie and only came to the surface upon melting. Now, the texture of Melted Bonnie may be debated. He looks like he's drippy and smooth, but notice that there's still cracking around his chest, so he might have melted and then rehardened. Now, melted chocolate is obviously still edible, and depending on the kind of chocolate, the altered consistency when it rehardens might be strange or perfectly fine. Though in that gooey melted state, while messy, it's still very tasty. And now with even more multicolored candies to enjoy. It's not pretty, and you still can't eat the metal endo, but you can lick the chocolate off. So for the most part, pretty edible. I mean, if Bonnie lets you get that far. More so edible when we're talking about an animatronic. But did you know there's actually 2 more chocolate animatronics? Or candy-themed ones. Chocolate Freddy and Chocolate Chica, 2 merch-exclusive animatronics. It's very possible that these designs were planned to release in Fnaf AR, and that due to the makers being focused on making the final updates that the game would get, including the Dark Circus DLC the same year, they never ended up coming to the game. Though nobody's actually said that, that's just speculation on my part. Chocolate Freddy looks like he's made of cookie that's had chocolate sauce poured over it, and then candy sprinkled on it, with his endoskeleton teeth, bow, and buttons all looking like candy. Chocolate Chica, on the other hand, looks like she's made out of cake or donut material. Also drenched in chocolate, also covered in sprinkles and candy, seems to have white chocolate-dipped feet, unless it's just the same substance as her center, in which she isn't cakey and is instead stuffed with white chocolate. So if we were just looking at these 3, I would absolutely say that Chocolate Chica would be the most pleasant to eat. Bonnie is just too much chocolate, and Freddy's mouthful's a cookie. But if my theory is correct and Chica is cakey, she would be the perfect balance per bite. No wonder someone's been nibbling. But if her center is white chocolate, and she's just completely overfilled with white chocolate, then I'd say that Freddy's is the best bet. But all of them would taste good. I mean, they're mostly chocolate. I see chocolate. I eat it. There technically is one more dessert-themed animatronic though, but he's grouped in not with the chocolates and instead with the holiday animatronics, and that would be Gingerbread Foxy. He never appeared to be a skin or anything, he's just a merch-exclusive character, and a relatively recent one. He has a gingerbread-suited body with a candy cane replacing his hook, and a peppermint wheel eye patch. Most of his endo remains made of metal. Now, the reason I don't really count Gingerbread Foxy as much as I do the chocolate characters is because Gingerbread Foxy's suit seems to be more like a costume than actual gingerbread, while the chocolate animatronics seem to be actually made of real chocolate. So I'm adding it, but it's not really, I don't think it's applicable. There's also more candy animatronics, but they're exclusive to these collectible minis. I think being these little merch collectible figures, I don't know how much to count them in the grand scheme of things, but there are 3 of them that I'm aware of. A little gingerbread Freddy, a candy cane Foxy, and a pink Bonnie covered in sprinkles and white icing. They're very cute, but I don't think they even have like official names, let alone enough to go on for me to really decide whether they're edible or not. And that covers the edible animatronics this time, unless we're going to talk about Ennard, which I don't think we will. I can tell you for sure that Ennard causes extreme gastrointestinal distress. It starts coming out at least one way with him. So what's next? Well, the final piece of Fnaf food I'm covering today. The biggest, the possibly grossest, and the one that is by far most confusing when taken out of context. And not only that, but a food from the books that was served semi-regularly in Freddy Fazbear's establishments. Or at least one of them. I'm talking about the birthday gummy. The birthday gummy, and the events of Gumdrop Angel, the story it's featured in, land somewhere in the higher what the hell range of Fazbear frights. More baffling than the kid that turned into goo, but not as much as the guy who turned into a signpost. At this point, I could tell you that there was a story where someone became a doorstop, and you'd have reason to believe I was telling the truth. The birthday gummy is a confusing phenomenon that involves Fazbear Entertainment turning people into giant candy statues by eating gumdrop noses, having children devour the statue like hungry wolverines, gets the birthday kid to eat the next candy nose, then assumedly abducts that kid and serves them to the next birthday party, and of course, this practice goes on without anyone questioning why the birthday kid disappeared, noticing the kid turning into candy, or the kid just, not winding up back at Freddy's in time to be eaten. There's also this weird detail where the birthday kid gets the first bite. The candy nose? Nah, the toes! Alright kid, Go up and bite the Tootsies, and then send the swarm of ravenous kids to eat pounds upon pounds of gummy candy in one sitting, apparently without getting sick or bored. But the most important part. So this magic, and this is definitely magic candy gumdrop turns people gelatinous. There's no way that it turns them sweet enough to resemble candy. The book implies it can. I don't recall it directly stating that, but it did imply it since the kids chowed down without question. But it can't make them fruit-flavored jelly bellies. It just simply couldn't. No amount of science could do that. Which means that hunk of gummy would taste like meat. Jellied meat. Here's some jellied meat. And yes, before you ask, these are real recipes. That doesn't mean they're good. The Jell-O craze of the 50s was horrendous. That and those mayonnaise banana candles. Ugh. Whenever you have nostalgia for an age that passed long before you were born, remember the mayonnaise banana candles. Alright kids, come on over and eat your giant slab of meat-flavored gummy candy. Make sure not to leave a single bite, except the gumdrop nose. We need that for the next serving. There's no way the human gummy bear tastes good. It might taste overly sweet, maybe a little like pork, but it's also definitely carrying the nastier tastes of the human body. Especially the gummy colon. And it's not cooked, it's just jellified. Some of those kids are walking away with E. coli. Nobody's coming out of this party normal. If not for the pounds of sugar they may have consumed, then the pounds of raw meat. Either way you look at it, this is a train wreck. The gyrating gummy statue. This is absolutely the worst thing Freddy's has served at their establishments. Only beat out by possibly the burger shake. There's nothing topping this. So it's time for us to come to a close and get on to the most important part, the final ranking of what is the best and worst food on the list. So let's narrow this down. When it comes to the best, Chica's coming out on top, whether it be caked up donut Chica, or Chica's cheesy chips, or her slew of restaurant foods. Narrowing it down though, I think I came up with two options. Either Chica's hearty potato and possibly chicken chowder, or Chica's cheese-coated chicken burgers. And I gotta say, I'm not crazy about chicken sandwiches, but that chicken burger looks so good. Like, it needs more toppings, but it looks very good. The chowder is probably the better food, but I think I would prefer the burger. So I'm going to put both of these in second place and crown the winner as Fiona's cake instead. If that seems sudden, I changed my mind while I was writing this part of the script and I'm just leaving it in here. Fiona made a beautiful cake. And it looks scrumptious, and no doubt tastes scrumptious. And it was so good that it infected the code and outlived her as a faint memory in Monty's A-Arcade Golf at the Pizzaplex, despite the fact that that cake had likely not been baked in 50 years. It's full of love, untampered with time, and impossible to replicate. It's the best of the best. I think it would even give the last video's winner a run for its money. Simple, but great. The worst food? Well, I would love to say it's the gummy colon, but I can't prove it. I will say that I would argue that a jellified human would taste seriously gnarly, and if I have to suspend disbelief on the fact that Fazant can turn people into candy and then get away with it, then I can also accept a world where this thing accurately tastes like jelly meat product and the kids are still chomping down on it like Glamrock Chica on hot trash, or me on a creamy burger. And the alternate is also one I can't prove, and that would be the ice-cold milk, which is at best canned evaporated milk, and at worst, unfrigerated spoiled milk. Like, severely gross milk. You pop a tab and take a swig and a big lump drops down your throat. And that's when it starts coming out both ways. And only Edwin Murray would make something like this without considering the consequences. In fact, that's part of the reason I don't think it's shelf-stable, because Edwin just has a habit of not thinking things through. What do you mean, put my small child inside of the fence? Nah, let's let him play in the parking lot. I'm sure he won't run out in front of a truck. That fence was the only thing guarding him from getting run over, wildlife, and Afton. We know that man can't climb a 5-foot fence in that hideous bunny costume. The point is this. We have jellied human or spoiled milk. And they both depend on whether the milk is somehow safe and the human is somehow sweet. Let's say, though, that it's the worst case for both. I would say, in that case, the spoiled canned milk would be worse immediately. It would taste worse, it would make you feel sick faster, and it just seems like a bad idea. But it seems to be selling well at Murray's, so apparently it's at least somewhat edible. Maybe they're usually kept chilled and have a quick turnover. In that case, final call, the birthday gummy. The whole thing is just gross. From the nibbling toes, to the drunken dancing, to the gumdrop growths, to the contagion and or hyperglycemic shock, every part of it is a disaster. And the worst part, the absolute worst part of this entire situation involving the birthday gummy, is that there's no way it makes back the cost to run the scam. It would be cheaper to make a gummy statue from scratch. Just make a big jello mold, that's not very expensive. This whole thing had to have somehow been stolen from an idea of Edwin's, only he could come up with such a complicated way to waste more money. But that's where we come to the end yet again. I hope you had a good time. Go eat a snack, sip some soda, and remember these 3 important takeaways. 1. The human touch is not one that can be replaced so easily, especially one filled with love. 2. Milk should be kept refrigerated and meat should be cooked to an appropriate temperature to not pass on foodborne illness or parasites. The temperature depends on the meat. And 3, most importantly, if you order a cheese pizza and it's clear that someone picked off and ate the pepperonis, you are not required or obligated to leave a tip. Thank you for watching.